to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Some breaking news in the last half hour. Disposable vapes are set to be banned in Britain to protect children's health. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is set to announce the crackdown tomorrow after concerns of the rise in young people vaping. It is understood he plans to implement the ban and expected to come into force at the end of 2024 or the start of 2025. Health and environmental groups are delighted, but others have criticised the ban, saying disposable vapes help people give up smoking cigarettes. A murder investigation has been launched after 2 teenage boys died following a stabbing attack in Bristol. The 15 and 16-year-olds were attacked in the south of the city yesterday morning. Avon and Somerset police say a group of people fled the scene by car. Both boys died in hospital in the early hours of this morning. A 44-year-old man and a 15-year-old boy have been arrested and remain in custody. Defence Secretary Grant Shapps says the UK remains undaunted by yesterday's illegal attack on HMS Diamond. Ministry of Defence confirmed the warship successfully repelled a Houthi drone in the Red Sea. The vessel used her counter-defence system to destroy the drone, avoiding any injuries or damage. This is the 3rd attempted attack on the naval vessel. And in other news, the Queen has left the London clinic after spending the afternoon with the King. It's the 3rd day His Majesty has spent recovering in hospital following a procedure for an enlarged prostate. King Charles is said to be doing well after the treatment. The Princess of Wales is also at the same hospital following abdominal surgery. Kemi Badenoch has told GB News she asked the chairman of the Post Office to resign after she realised there were problems with the board. Henry Staunton stepped down in the wake of the Horizon IT scandal. The business secretary said the decision was by mutual consent after she explained to him why we needed new leadership. And 2 people have been arrested after protesters threw soup at the Mona Lisa in the Louvre Museum in Paris. 2 women wearing shirts with the slogan Food Response crossed the security boundary and began shouting, "Our farming system is sick." The incident came after days of protests by French farmers over low profits and red tape. The Leonardo da Vinci painting, widely considered a masterpiece, is set behind 3 inches of protective glass and was unharmed. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Thanks, Sophia. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. And I'm joined by King Gammon, Paul Cox. That's his new name. And America's finest export since child obesity, it's Lewis Schaefer.
Oh, I think I'm bringing the country thinner. I'm making it thinner with my...
Yes. It's not to say you are obese. I'm just saying you're another great thing that's come from America. That was the joke. Good to explain them.
Yeah.
How are you both doing?
Obviously, yeah, I think they teach that at comedian school, don't they?
Yes.
Always explain the jokes.
You all got the dress code. I love this. You're like the Conservative candidate and you're the Labour candidate with the ties.
But you are George Clooney-esque once again, Nick.
Clooney-esque. Some have said Clooney, some have said John Major. I've got lovers and haters out there.
I think that's inappropriate. They always accuse me of being George Clooney-esque.
Accused? What a terrible accusation. All right, I'd love to chat, but let's have a look at the front pages. So, The Times has drone strike on US base raises fears of Iran war. The Guardian, fears of US-Iran conflict intensify after troops killed in drone attack. You get the idea, very similar. The Sun, Kyle, I'm so sorry. The Daily Mail, strike hell on trains as chiefs cash in. The Express, Kemi, stirring Tory plotters must stop messing around. And finally, the Daily Star, balmy, which is about weather. And those are your front pages. So, Lewis, pretty grim story on the Metro.
Yes, it is. 2 more teens killed in UK knife epidemic. And this is in Bristol. And they, like 15 and 16-year-old boys were killed. And it's really bad news. But it's everything that's happened today. It's really bad news. But they're trying to get us into a panic over the knife epidemic. And I actually did some research and checked on UK knife crime stats, and they're basically unchanged since 2016. It's a flat line. It's not like it's gone like boom, like there's an epidemic.
But presumably it was still quite high even then. I mean, Khan was already in London then, so I mean, you expect it to be London all the time, don't you? But this is Bristol. What's going on?
It's not often London, actually. We hear about it a lot in London because we've got a very London-centric media base, haven't we? But I think largely a lot of the knife crime happens in some of the other major cities. I mean, not saying that London hasn't got a huge problem with knife crime. And what's really demoralising about this is no matter how often this exact same crime plays out, it doesn't seem to discourage our young men from carrying knives. In fact, it's having quite opposite effect. And psychologically, they're thinking they must carry knives to protect themselves. And we're ending up with this situation now. Now, it's difficult to know how much of this is blown out of proportion by the media, because we do talk about it a lot and how much of it's real. But it does feel like we've got a huge problem amongst young men carrying knives.
Yeah, and as you say, this just adds to their status. Very disturbing. What about the Guardian then, Paul? Yeah,
this is another serious story. Actually, fears of US-Iran conflict intensify after troops killed in drone attacks. So this is the spectre of a direct US-Iranian military conflict drew closer yesterday when Joe Biden announced that US servicemen had been killed and more than 34 injured in a drone attack. And this was at a US base on the border between Syria and Jordan. And of course, any direct attack that kills ally servicemen does raise the bet somewhat, doesn't it? And it reminds me of that, but I don't know why, but it keeps going over in my head at the moment. There's a song by a guy called Barry Maguire from 1965 called The Eve of Destruction. And it's well worth a listen, actually, but not if you're under 41 and might get conscripted.
Yeah, this is almost Simon Evans-esque levels of referencing there.
Yeah.
But no, it's obviously very disturbing. I mean, what does Iran want? What are they up to, Lewis? Do you know?
Well, what Iran wants everything. Iran is a great country. People forget about Iran.
Strange take. No, you mean before the revolution, in the past, before the, or do you mean now?
1978 Iran.
Even now, they were a country with a tremendous history, thousands of years of greatness.
And you like their attitude to women?
No, I don't like their attitude towards women. I like a lot of things. But America sticking their noses in places that we don't belong. What is a military base doing in the middle of the desert right in this place? It's just to cause problems for these. Yes, the Iranians are not our friends. I'm no great big Iran fan, but the most important...
You were a minute ago.
No, I'm just saying...
You remember a minute ago.
I'm saying they're a great country. You don't poke it. It's the same way we're poking Russia.
Oh, you're scared of them. You're doing a Trump thing. They're a great country, great people. You're doing that kind of thing. Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm saying that I'm being... Trump, I'm not afraid of them, but...
Oh, right, no one said you were. Yeah. What did you hear online? What did you hear online, Lewis? I've heard Lewis is shaking.
Lewis, it's rude to point in this country, but I know you're an immigrant. But, so, yeah, I get your point, Lewis. The neocons, you're more of an isolationist. Why are you meddling at all?
I am... Yes, I'm an isolationist. You stick to your own business. And the problem with war is you should know who your enemy is. And right now, this country, Britain, and America are all over the place. And we don't have enough, there's not enough troops in the world to fight everybody. We're talking about a war with Russia. We're talking where China is a major problem. Iran is a major problem. We're worried about the Palestinians invading Israel.
Houthis.
The Houthis. You gotta, sometimes you can't, there's nothing you can do. You just got to leave it alone.
Do you remember those peaceful days of Trump, Paul, when it was just world peace? So nice, nothing.
4 years of no war.
So good. Oh, nasty tweets, but no one's blowing up anyone. What a beautiful time.
You know, it sounds like you're kidding.
No, I'm not.
I know you're not.
No,
it wasn't peace, but it was peaceful. It was quiet.
It was more peaceful than this.
We're sticking our little pretty little noses in places we should not be going. I think they want to get us into a war with Iran.
If we didn't, and we gave them the upper hand, how would you feel then? Because who's to say they wouldn't attack us just because we decided to be nice?
They might, and they want to attack us, but it's a long way to America from a bit of sand in the Jordanian, Syrian.
OK, he's starting his own war now.
Sounds like another song. It's a long way to America. All right, Lewis, what is on the front cover of The Express?
This is an amazing story. And who's Kemi Badenoch, which she's supposedly this team loves her, basically. I don't know anything about
Kemi.
They love Kemi. Kemi stirring Tory plotters must stop messing around. And the story basically is she goes on the TV on another channel and says that she's getting called. People are calling for her to be the new prime minister candidate or whatever, even prime minister. And it's like saying, and she's saying it's bad for our party. She's saying the equivalent of saying, there's so many people saying I'm the most beautiful girl in the world, and it doesn't help by them saying that I'm the most beautiful girl in the world. This is pathetic.
Pathetic of her. What's she going to do? I'm outraged by that. When I say we love Kemi, of course we're neutral, Ofcom regulated, but there was actually a poll of GB viewers, and actually apparently they don't love Kemi. It was 8% Farage, 7% wanted Boris, 7% Penny Mordaunt, 2% Suella Braverman, 51% wanted none of the above. So that's
just
the
no
system.
government.
Although amongst Conservative members, I'll just give you some more stats. Kemi was plus 64%, and the next was Penny Mordaunt, 48%. Esther McVeigh, former GB, 31%. Shapps, 12%. Didn't see that coming. Cleverly, 10%. -5 was Lord Cameron.
What do you mean by that?
-17 was Hunt, and -26 Sunak. These are the votes amongst Conservative members.
No, but when they say plus 64, they mean 64% plus positive. And
yes. Well, Sunak's 26% negative.
That's a huge positive.
I know, it's massive.
There's no negative.
People love Kemi. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The Conservative base loves Kemi. And the question is, when would it be good for her to come in now? She's played it down. She said, look, I've backed Sunak as soon as I stood down. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I don't think anyone coming... I can see Kemi Badenoch being a future leader of the Conservative Party. I think most people who are interested in politics and interested in Conservative politics know Kemi Badenoch is very much a front runner for that position. If she wanted a long-term future, I doubt coming in now would help her. I think whoever comes in, and I don't mean that whoever comes in now automatically doesn't become the Tory leader if they come out of power, but 4 years in opposition, going through an election, I'm not sure it will do anyone any good. The best thing that can happen is Rishi Sunak rides it out, and that's the end of him. The funniest thing that could happen is that Rishi doesn't ride it out and Boris comes back on the back, I would say, of a stallion down Downing Street, like with a couple of ladies on the back.
He did say hasta la vista, so maybe he'll come back on a motorbike. But yeah, I mean, Kemi's very capable. She's very, very smart. Is it sort of poison chalice even becoming leader after the election, because you're going to be in the wilderness, you're going to have years of Starmer? Or will it be like Thatcher versus Callaghan? Will she be able to win? Because Labour will be chaos and misery, and then much like the trade unions under Callaghan, will Kemi be able to exploit that? And
I mean, of course, the direct opposite to what I said is she comes in now and she can call herself Prime Minister forever. She'll probably be in longer than Liz Truss.
She could actually, I think she could even come in now and survive. She could come in now, no one's expecting her to win, and she loses, but maybe it's a big loss, but then they blame it on Sunak and Truss and the previous chaos. And then she just stays and is the leader for a while. It could happen.
Well, the reason people like her is she's not team
world.
And she would bring some reality politics back.
She's extremely clear on her views and on the culture war issues, and she speaks very strongly. And it's a refreshing change with all these managerial politics.
So it might be nice to have that for 6 months before we go.
And she's a woman. And
there you go.
That's
can't have everything.
You know.
Should we do the star very, very quickly, Paul?
Balmy. Last week it was freezing. Next week it's going to be warm. In fact, so warm that it's going to be 19 point. Well, it's so specific. I assume that perhaps today it was measured in the Highlands, by the way, which are in Scotland for those people who live outside of London. 19.6 degrees.
Nice. I mean, this is sort of classic. I mean, if it's cold, it's climate change. If it's warm, it's climate change. What do you think, Lewis?
I think British weather is the least interesting thing about this country.
How dare you?
What are you talking about?
You know, you don't have weather. You don't have weather. You have climate. So it's basically between 10 and.
How did you have a conversation with your parents without talking about weather? I don't think I've ever spoken to my mum without saying, "What about the weather?"
Because it's a non-story, the weather. It's always basically the same. It's not like in America where interesting things happen.
OK. All right, that is it for part one. But coming up, Houthi rebels and Tory rebels, which would you rather deal with? Yes, we have even more on that in a few minutes.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer, or as our producer wanted me to say, Schaefer, Dixon, Cox for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what his point was. But let's get into it with the Mail. And Grant Shapps has called the Houthi rebel attack intolerable and illegal. And if Grant Shapps says it, it must be serious.
Yeah. Well, this is really good news.
OK.
Or is it?
I'm not sure.
It's bad news. It's bad news because this is one of those sticking our nose into places that don't belong. Defense Secretary Grant Shapps
slaps. That would be better. That
Grand
suits
slaps.
him.
Grand slaps.
Slams. How many people have
If
great...
he was a DJ, it'd be called Grant Slap.
Well, he's got a great name. That's a great chaps. It's very strong. Grant. I'd like to name my kid Grant. Intolerable and illegal Iran-backed Houthi missile attacks on British oil tanker. What is it, a British oil tanker? Because the big companies don't own their own ships anymore. They're not registered
for tax reasons.
For tax reasons, but even if they are, the point is, Britain is trying to defend the entrance to the Suez Canal like it's the 1950s again, and Britain has a military in places all over the world. This is a total unbelievable mess.
I'm actually stunned by your knowledge, Ellis. Have you started doing research for this show?
I am super knowledgeable about this stuff. I've tried to play an idiot, and I'm tired of being an idiot.
This is the real Lewis.
The real Lewis Schaefer is
This is Brian Simpson. That's an in-joke. But no,
if you start being good, I haven't got a career.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're going to have to be ridiculous, Paul, and say things about meat and water dehydrates you.
I say things like Paul Cox believes. Well, of course, this is inevitable, isn't it? What we should say is, you make a good point, because on board was, I believe, 22 Indians and one Bangladeshi chap, all unharmed, which is great. But, rebels are going to rebel, aren't they?
Yeah.
This is what's happening here. What did we expect, really? I mean, we attacked them, and they were just going to go, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, we're really sorry. Of course, this is going to be an escalation now. Quite interestingly, we were talking about this, and Lewis taught me something, because we were referred to...
He's on fire.
This unbelievable tonight, because I always refer to the Houthis, and he said, well, they're just Yemenis, really. The Houthis are just... the Yemenis. They're just all part of the...
That's the name of the Yemeni regime.
I tell you what, they're the enemy right now.
The enemy.
Anyone? Is this even on?
Brilliant stuff.
A couple of things annoy me about this. One is that it's Iran again behind everything. They're always behind everything. They're just kind of behind, but they won't do the outrageous stuff. Well, they did do the US thing, but in general, they're just hiding behind Hamas and all these people. They're like Lewis Schaefer's joke writer. They just don't want to be out in front saying these things. But the other thing that annoyed me is that our Navy used to famously rule the waves, Paul, but now we can't even get a surface-to-surface missile going. We have to send out the RAF to do what should be the Navy's job.
Yeah, and we've got lasers and stuff, but it's all good stories, and we've tested it somewhere in Salisbury. But I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do now, because, like you say, Iran is like the puppeteer, and it's got Punch and Judy doing all the domestic abuse and arguing over sausages. I don't know where this analogy is going.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it is the puppeteer. It is Iran that sits behind all this.
Oh,
sorry, Liz, we've got to go. Unless you got, it didn't feel like it was going to be a brief point.
Oh, sorry.
It just felt long.
No, it's not true. It's like blaming. It's like Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes. He's behind everything. The fact is that countries are going to. Country.
Let's do The Guardian, and it sounds like Keir Starmer is already choosing the wallpaper for number 10, though that has gone wrong before, Paul.
Yeah, you would think so. This is in The Guardian, of course, and you have to bear that in mind, by the way. If we win, we have to be ready. Labour prepares for the first 100 days as Tories slide into chaos. Now, of course, the 100-day plan originated with Franklin Roosevelt. It's all about... I know this because I used to have a real job, and you'd be asked if you were managing something, what is your 100-day plan? And the idea is, what are you going to deliver in that first 100 days that's going to make a difference? In Roosevelt's case, it was about delivering a bunch of legislation through the Senate, and which he achieved. This was all in 1933, Lewis. Yeah. I'm starting to sound like you now. But of course, what's going to happen, I guarantee, with whoever comes in, and let's say it's Starmer. And by the way, in here it says, in the week, unruly former Conservative minister was slapped down for suggesting yet another change of leader. The opposition was readying itself for government under Starmer's rigid control. Now, I don't care how rigid Starmer is. I don't think in that first 100 days he's going to be able to achieve a tremendous amount, other than pointing out that he's inherited a mess. Maybe we'll all have to identify as transgender, but other than that, I can't see there being any...
I don't understand. Why can't he achieve something? Nick, Paul, because he's going to have a huge majority in the thing. He's going to have all of his team, even if he doesn't get all the ducks in a row. They're still going to be quacking Starmers too.
Who's going to pluck the chickens?
And it's not the end of the day yet.
Well, it is chaos in the Tories, and he can benefit from that. And did you see this joke about Simon Clarke? that he's 6'7", so they said Sunak has survived the knife of the long night. That's pretty clever. That's fairly clever stuff. But yeah, I mean, they're in chaos, and Starmer has to get it ready they have to have all their bills ready. They've been panicking. They've got to get everything ready now. But it'd be funny if they lost after all that, wouldn't it?
Well, it's not unheard of. I think it was 1983, wasn't it? With
Neil Kinnock.
Neil Kinnock.
Oh yeah, because he slipped on the beach. Was that one?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, right. Yeah, I should imagine that rigid Starmer will not be taking any walks on the beach with the missus.
But do you think how long do you think Labour are going to be in for? Because some people are saying, it's going to just be 8 to 10 years of just absolute misery. Do you think? My hope is that they make the country so bad that we get rid of them before then.
Well, I think we all agree, no matter what our persuasion is, that there needs to be a change. So first of all, change is going to be good in some way. Hopefully it can reset. My fear, however, is there is very little difference between Starmer and Sunak.
It's going to be bad, Paul. It's going to be a bad change. It's going to be unions. But then who
do we get?
Woke stuff.
You have a theory, don't you, about Farage and reform?
Well, yeah, I think Farage comes in 2029, either with the Tories or reform, but I'm not sure. It could just be a decade of Labour misery. Of course, we're totally impartial, but let's do the Mail. And Rishi Sunak is being urged to drop the smoking ban policy. But what about his legacy, Paul?
So, yeah, Tory MPs urged Prime Minister to drop the smoking ban, instead raising the legal age to 21. And, of course, just to recap, basically it means anyone born in 2009 beyond will never legally be able to buy cigarettes. So this policy, as far as I'm concerned, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because it's unworkable. I mean, the idea that at some point in the future, a 53-year-old will have to ask a 54-year-old if they can nip into the shop and buy them cigarettes. It's great fodder for us, but it's absolutely ridiculous because there's just going to be illegal markets and it's not going to be a problem. One of the other reasons is this whole policy was born out of a model of legislation in New Zealand under old Jacinda Trust Us, We Are the Source of the Truth, Ardern. And I just can't see... What was most remarkable about this? If Jeremy Corbyn had come up with this idea, you would have thoroughly believed it. You would have said, of course this is a Corbyn idea. It's idealistic, it's something...
Authoritarian.
Authoritarian. It's something a teenager might come up with if they're angry with their parents. But it's not the sort of thing that should be coming out of any Conservative party.
Yeah, except they'd want to smoke the teenager. But yes, it's absurd because Tories, Conservatives... synonymous with personal responsibility. This MP, Giles Watling, who's a more libertarian, has come out and criticised it. Apparently he's backed by Truss. They've got about 18 different parties, the Conservatives. And it was such a strange thing that at the conference, when immigration was a massive issue and cost of living and all these things, they went with A-levels and smoking ban. Completely insane. Shows that Sunak, for all his many positives he may have, like being a hard worker and smart, he's politically inept. That would be the accusation. Lewis?
It's just like what's going on with the war. Is that they've got a million different enemies. And there's the most important enemies, they're completely dropping the ball. I am against the cigarette ban, not because cigarettes are good for you, they probably aren't, but anything... But
that's one of the only things you agree with. That's the only mainstream opinion you agree with.
Yeah, probably. I can't be sure it's as much of a killer as they say. My father used to work for a cigarette.
You know what, Lewis? You need all the relief you can get when you're on this flat Earth. Do you know what I mean?
You need all the something to calm you down. Anyway, the point is, people haven't mentioned anywhere tax revenues, the amount of money they make by selling cigarettes. It's going to be hard to find.
Good point. All right, let's do the Independent. And just when I thought this country had lost its fighting spirit, one of our finest traditions returns. Of course, I'm talking about football hooliganism, Lewis.
Yes, exactly.
It's what we do.
And when I read this thing, I was like so happy because that's what West Brom, my team, versus the Wolves, my team, in an FA Cup. Well, it could be my team if Sam Allardyce is coaching. I love him. Anyway,
what is your actual team? Crystal Palace.
New York Mets. It's Crystal Palace. I could support any team depending on who they're fighting against. If they're fighting against,
rich understanding of the game.
Yeah, more.
Oh, you mean fighting on the terraces?
Yeah, whatever.
I thought you meant on the pitch.
Who the enemy is.
Right.
Who the enemy is, and that's what this is all about. They suspended a football match after violent clashes between fans. It was the first derby, which is when two local teams, because these guys are local teams, were fighting each other, and they actually knew there was going to be problems because they had a 11:45 start. They started in the morning to prevent people from drinking.
Right.
And they knew there was going to be a problem because historically, West Brom has always supported Ukraine while the Wolves have been pro-Moscow.
Very pro-Putin, yeah. That is a big problem.
Famously, no. It's actually Steve Ball, believe it or not. It really kicked off the... Steve Ball was a West Brom player. Most famously...
He was Wolves striker.
Yes, but he got sold to Wolves, I believe, sometime in the 90s.
Hang on, he got sold to West Brom?
No.
He was a Wolves player for ages.
I think Steve Ball's in the mix there somewhere. I think at some point he was at West Brom and got sold to Wolves. He's obviously famously... Anyway,
there was
that's
a
not what
moment
this
when
is about.
someone's head was covered in blood and the fans chanted, "Let him die." Is that going too far, Paul?
It is going too far in this context. And, of course, you know, I don't condone football violence. We're football fans. And we know who we actually support, Nick, and who their manager might be and where they live and what they do. But this for me is an insight. It's probably good that we're able to have a bit of a tear-up still, because all we've seen this week under the scaremongering about conscription is that we're just, you know, lily-livered snowflakes across the country. Of course, it doesn't bother anyone in this room because we can't be conscripted, but...
Yes, and just quickly, so we don't get the tweets or X posts, obviously there have been serious football incidents, but there's also some of it that's just banter. This one's, I'm not sure where this one falls, but that is it for part 2. But coming up, eco-morons attack the Mona Lisa, and has Trump been unfairly treated? Doesn't seem possible. See you in a minute.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Prioritize.
I'm gonna.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Mail. And eco-protesters have thrown soup at the Mona Lisa. Everyone's a critic, Paul.
Aren't they just? Eco-morons, these are the words of the Daily Mail.
Eco-morons. I can hear Trump saying it.
I mean, they're also my words, actually. Have today thrown soup over the Mona Lisa in the Louvre in Paris, their latest infuriating climate stunts. Now, of course, this is part of the A20.
No, don't mention their names.
I know you told me. I know you said I couldn't, but
I'm not saying you couldn't, but I don't think you should.
Well, I think it's interesting for our listeners. There are people out there. Anyway,
okay,
A22, the A22.
I thought we were recording this.
No, that's something else we're doing. A22 network movement. So this is a collection of ne'er-do-wells across the world, 12 countries, including our very own Just Stop Oil in the UK. And of course, these people are idiots. They're doing idiotic things, and they've been misguided by a lot of mistruths. And whatever way you want to.
This is them. So
I do not think. I'm sorry.
I've noticed.
I don't think we should be putting this on the air for these people. I think these people, death penalty for these people. This is $1 billion painting. It's the highest form of Western art, whether you like it or not. If it was an image of some great religious figure, you'd also say no. That we should not give these people any bit of oxygen.
Oxygen.
Yes.
Well, strong views from Lewis Schaefer. I feel as if then is that the kind of moment I have to say passionate views there. Some will disagree. What do I say to that when he says death penalty for this? Do I have to go strong views? Yeah. Other people may have other views. What do I have to say there?
Yes, I would say most people are against the death penalty.
Well, I'm pro for certain things, not necessarily for this. For child murder, but not for throwing soup.
So strongly that nobody, because sooner or later they're going to break the glass and the painting's going to be ruined.
Did we mention the name, by the way? Riposte.
Yes, don't mention.
No, riposte élémentaire or whatever, but that actually means food response in English, which sounds like Meals on Wheels or something. It's just not as cool sounding.
I mean, at the centre of Lewis's lunacy is actually a really good point, and that's that we do give too much oxygen to the fire that is these extremists. Yeah. Now, if we didn't report on it, what would be interesting would be to see what would happen. Their stunts would just get wilder and wilder and wilder and wilder until they chuck themselves off the Eiffel Tower, and he'd get his wish anyway.
We should do the equivalent of muting them on X. They're shouting. We're like, I'm not even seeing it. You know what I mean? That's quite a good policy.
Or because we know there's going to be no punishment for these people. I mean, you hate to say it, they mean well, probably. They're lovely people. I know tons of...
They're in a cult.
Absolute balance.
But at the end, you know...
It's hard for you to top what you've already said, to be fair, so we can move on. Let's do The Guardian. And young people are having to refuse jobs because they can't afford clothes and transport. It's never stopped Lewis.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to come across as a nasty person because this is in the Guardian. Yeah, I'm going to, because this is the Prince's
Death
Trust.
penalty?
Yeah, the death penalty for young people. Send them off to war. Send them to war. Send Mike. I got young kids, too, and I was young once, and I know how hard it is to get your first job. But it's never going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. And this is one big plea for the government to give young kids money to go get a job. And the truth is, it's less incentive for getting a job. It's just more wasted money. It's like that. And they did a survey for Prince's Trust with Prince Charles. He was the one who founded it, right? And he's the Team World's favorite royal.
So what is the story? So they basically they're finishing their education early, which is probably good. They're being bullied for not having the right clothes. Basically, cost of living. They can't afford the auxiliary things you need for a job.
But that's
He just
I was going to say Paul, but Lewis, if he...
Yeah.
No, go on, Paul.
I mean, let's take this story in The Guardian on face value, right? Let's say this is happening, and I've no evidence to say it's not. I mean, it's an embarrassment for the fifth biggest economy in the world to have a situation where new starters in the working world can't afford to A, get there, B, dress correctly to be there, or afford the education to get to the level they need to be educated for the jobs they want. So at the crux of this is probably a serious point somewhere. Of course, because it's The Guardian, they're leaning on the emotional aspect of it, so we're not really getting the true story. We're getting a sob story because that's the only thing that Guardian readers enjoy.
Right. But the numbers are surprisingly... I know it's hard to be a kid. It's hard to look for a job and to do all this stuff. But the numbers are surprisingly low. Like 1 in 10 had to turn down a job because of costs of getting there. You know, stuff like that. Maybe they live a bit too far, so they'll find someplace closer.
Yeah, you're right. It sounds like a bit of a non-story to me.
It sounds like
Let's do the Daily Star. The Army are in trouble for basing a recruitment ad on the video game Fortnite, popular with young people. Could children be the key to defeating Russia, Paul?
I doubt it, but let's explore the story. Bizarre army recruitment drive on Fortnite binned after being branded sick and disturbing. So just to recap here, what's happened is the British Army, our very own army, has teamed up with a computer game, Fortnite in this case, to try and attract young recruits. And of course, that's where all the young people are, so why wouldn't they? And in many ways, this is a genius idea. I don't know what the strapline was, but it could have been something like, you like killing people online? Well, boy, have we got the job for you.
It was you belong here, you belong in the army, weirdly.
Yeah, me.
That was the advert. And actually, morality aside, it was actually quite well done. I watched it and I thought, yeah, you might join up with this. They need to do something because no one's going to join.
And most war now is with drones and from a distance, and so these kids are perfect. And it's like they're embarrassed for, or they're being made to feel embarrassed for promoting the army. We need an army.
That said, I've just wrote an article on this in my Substack.
Yeah.
It's completely against all this, you know, the conscription, because they want to conscript us into the neoliberal globalist project, which no one wants to join or care about.
Yeah.
The conservative patriot people have been alienated over years by basically being told they're scum. The other side, the left, already hate the country, so they're in a position where no one wants to join the army, and why would they? So now they got desperate, they're sticking in video games.
Yeah,
because as you say, they're basically asking people to fight for Team World. They don't want to fight. The people who fight don't want to fight for Team World. And number two, we got enemies right here that need to die.
Good point. There's also terms of... Slightly boringly, there's also a terms of service thing where this might be against Fortnite's own rules, so they're telling off the army.
I'd imagine it's not ideal. That, I mean, my daughter at 14 years old plays Fortnite, and the idea that she's going to be the solution to our problems is quite hilarious.
Are you bad-mouthing your own?
No, what I'm saying is if we're relying on our future, my daughter fighting for us, then I suggest that it ought to happen in the afternoon, because she's not going to be ready in the morning.
Follow Lewis's example. Never badmouth your own children. Sorry, Paul. I think we've got to move on.
We should do.
We'll move on.
Yeah.
OK, let's do the Mail. And it seems there might have been a conflict of interest in the recent $83 million case against Trump. I'm starting to think they're just out to get this guy, Lewis.
Yeah, well, it's $83 million. It sounds like a lot of money, but
to the layman.
But it's only 83. And supposedly Trump comes out fighting. Donald's lawyers reveal how they plan to challenge this outrageous jury verdict. The truth is, of course, he's going to come out fighting. What is he supposed to, like, hold up his hands and say, "Oh, it's just $83 million. I'll write the check to the lady." He's going to fight it. And the truth is, it is basically amazing. It's making people, or at least making me, like Donald Trump even more. I like him. I'm growing to like the guy because he's a victim. He's not the man. And there's a huge number of people in America who won't support the man. And the man in big, capital S.
Huge.
Huge. He's a huge man.
It's true. Every time they persecute him, his numbers go up. Every time there's a new court case, his numbers go up, his approval rating and all that. That's true.
Right.
I mean, the very questionable thing here was that they're alleging that Judge Lewis Kaplan and Carol's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, who are not related, weirdly, worked together in the early 90s with the judge serving as her mentor. So it's a massive conflict of interest, right? That is the claim.
That's the accusation.
Yeah, and do you know what? I've actually found a weird irony here as well. In the defence of that, in a statement to the Post, it's probably the Washington Post, is it? Roberta Kaplan has denied there's any conflict of interest and said that the two barely knew each other. They overlapped for less than 2 years in the early 90s at a large law firm. Now, the problem with that is the case itself against Trump, as he allegedly assaulted this woman in the early 90s. I'm like, so which is it? Can we rely on early 90s accounts or not?
Right.
See, I've just destroyed their whole case.
But at the same time, it's a legal business is a small business, and people know each other. You take a look at what happened in this country with Johnny Depp versus News World, and how that was totally enmeshed with weirdnesses.
You said at the same time as if you were contradicting me and actually agreed with me. Paul,
yeah, agreeing with you.
I mean, I hate to say this because this wasn't a criminal case, but it's a very serious crime, sexual assault. But I don't believe anything that's associated with Trump pro or against anymore.
Right.
I don't believe for a minute that this really would stand up to scrutiny in a criminal court. I don't believe that it's worth 83 million quid. But I hate to say that because there are some very serious cases out there where people aren't believed and they should be believed. So I think it throws a lot of things under the bus. Of course, they're all out to get Donald Trump. And do you know what? And it's very, very clear. Anyone who denies it is gaslighting you. They just don't want Donald Trump to get back into the White House. And unfortunately, they are so stupid that all they are doing is bolstering his campaign.
And can I make one point? I know we got to move on, but keep in mind that what's the backdrop of this is civil war in America. The Texans are taking control of their borders, and there's going to be civil war in America.
Great point. Let's quickly squeeze in this in the Times. And schools are improving their grades by brutally dumping the weaker pupils. Hey, it's how he built the empire, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a good technique. State schools are dumping weak students likely to do badly in GCSEs by off-rolling them. Now, off-rolling is just another term for excluding or permanently suspending, which is essentially the same thing. And this comes amid statistics that bear this out, in the sense that in 21-22, over 6,500 pupils were permanently excluded from schools. But if you lift the lid slightly, you see that it's largely for being disruptive in class. Now, when we were all young, being excluded from school was a very serious crime. If it had been disrupted in class, then every comedian that's now working now would have been excluded.
It was almost impossible to get excluded when we were young. I tried. Lewis, in 30 seconds, anything on this?
Centralization. This is what happens when the government is giving out these GCSEs and these tables and watching everybody. Let schools be independent. This is nothing new. This was when my kids were young. There was this problem as well. That's what schools do.
OK, so yeah, perverse incentives of over-regulation, Ofsted. Go back to a kind of loosey-goosey kind of just...
Loosey-goosey.
I think I went to school with her.
Yeah, let the internet. You could have a website. How's my school doing?
Okay. And loosey-goosey was excluded, by the way. But that is it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, the 4-year-old still wearing a nappy, and Uri Geller sees dead aliens. You can tell Andrew Doyle's away. That's all I've got to say on that. See you in a minute.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get into it with The Mirror and a 4-year-old who is still wearing a nappy. There's been a rash of stories like this lately, Lewis. A rash.
A rash of
I'm so
stories.
sorry. I apologise
Well,
to my family.
I like this story because I'm wearing. I just started to wear a nappy.
You were demonstrating it before the show.
For the people in America, diaper. Mum
Diaper,
fiercely defends decision to keep a 4-year-old. Did you read that? Did you read the headline?
No, you can read it.
Mum fiercely defends decision to keep her 4-year-old daughter in nappies. This is it is a real story because it's a real problem out there, but it makes it seem like this is some crazy one woman. There's so many people out there wearing these nappies.
Wearing nappies, and you don't know who. You could be wearing. I just say you're wearing one right now. Paul could be. Anyone in the street could be wearing one.
But these 5-year-olds 6-year-olds who've never been taught to wear napkins. And the truth is, this is even a non-story because we don't know the name of this person, where they live. It was an Instagram story 4 years ago.
Was it? Oh,
yes.
That is ridiculous. I didn't.
It was ridiculous. But the point about it is that this is a bad mother. Okay? And I know it's a bad mother because I potty trained. I put my kids in to use the bowl at 3 months old, and it can be done. I'm the #1 expert in infant potty training.
Dr. Lewis Schaefer,
Dr.
#1 expert.
Lewis Schaefer, the #1 expert. The truth is, if you are still potty training your child, if you just start at 18,
weird public service announcement.
Imagine
tuning in. They're so ridiculous. That was so.
It's ridiculous.
If you were still potty trained, that was like.
Who are you talking to?
I'm Troy McClure. That's just.
No, I'm helping the people.
You won't recognise me from such things.
You can potty train a 2-month-old baby.
Okay.
You can. So
I'm with you, Lewis. I never thought I'd say it.
Yeah.
You know what really bothers me about this? It's the myth. It's the Rousseauian myth of the noble savage. That's what bothers me, Paul, because she says here, oh, look, she's different. She's funny. She's fierce. Well, the smell's probably fierce. She knows what she wants and what she doesn't. Yeah, what she wants is a nappy. Yeah. And what she doesn't want is to be accepted in human society. I mean, like, you're wearing a nappy at 4, and the mother's like, oh, it's cool. She's doing what she wants. No, that's you've got to tough luck. That's like abuse. Yeah. It's not abuse, but you know what I mean? You've got to socialise
in the article, in the thing, it said that the girl refused to sit up at 6 months old.
Right.
She refused. Like she
refused to sit up. Yeah, make it sit up.
Yeah. Make it.
Paul, do you have anything like very quickly? I've been told to move on.
What I want is this clipped into and put on Mumsnet.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking this was over the line? Yeah. The Express, let's do this one with a story about why you should never hold in your farts. I'm so glad I got my master's degree for this show, Paul.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. A doctor has revealed that the distressing reason why you should never hold in your farts. I mean, it does start by saying the gastrointestinal system starts at the lips and ends at the bottom, which strangely is my bedroom technique. But it also...
The show goes out at 5 o'clock.
5 a.m, Paul.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Think of the children
I don't
wearing
know
nappies till 4. Think of them.
But there is good reason. There's science behind this. When you don't get rid of some of that gas, it can be absorbed through the lining of the gut and make its way into the bloodstream. From there, it makes its way into the lungs, and then you breathe it out. This sounds like the sort of thing you get told in the playground when you're about 7. Like, don't swallow chewing gum because it will wrap itself around your heart.
I mean, that one's true, but Lewis, anything on this?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because as we know, it's a fact. Beans, good for your heart. The more you eat, the more you fart. Vegans fart the most.
More of a rhyme than a fact.
Because
all rhymes are facts.
Bordering on a limerick.
Because what is farting? Farting is indigestion. Indigestion is when you're not digesting things. You cannot digest fiber. You can't digest most plant matter, and that's what causes farting.
You're right.
So
meat only.
Meat only. I have not farted in years.
That is not true.
That is true. I'm the #1 expert.
We got as much as the nation wants to hear about your digestion. Let's do the Daily Star. And Uri Geller claims to have been shown alien bodies at a NASA base. I, for one, immediately believe this, Lewis.
Yeah, well, people don't even know who Uri Geller is. Do they?
They know he's on this channel quite a lot. He's on the Nana show quite a lot.
Oh, he was okay. Well, he claimed he saw alien bodies. He He was taken. He's an Israeli, and he was taken by Nazi Werner von Braun.
That's weird, isn't it? That is weird. The inventor of the V2. Tell you who I want to speak to, the spoon guy. I need some help with the finer points of my rocket.
Bring him into the basement.
I'm a genius. Tell you who I want to consult.
Bendy Spoon Man.
Bendy Spoon Man. But and the shocking thing was, it's like claiming he's seen alien bodies. Yeah, he was hanging out with Michael Jackson.
Oh, nice, nice. That's been a joke.
Was that a joke?
That was good. But you know what, Paul? In 40 seconds, these aliens are real. You've heard it so many times. They're always the same. Small bodies. That guy Bob Lazar saw them. Isn't it a bit coincidental to keep? It's always the same description.
Yeah, but the problem is they keep undermining the whole thing by saying it's people like Uri Geller. The one question this article doesn't ask is why they invited Uri Geller. Like you say, I mean, you've got this potentially human history-changing event of small aliens somewhere, and they think, do you know who we're going to take to see him for the first time?
You know what? You take the story too far.
To be fair,
too far.
Uri's a great guy.
Uri Geller.
I like him. I think he's a great guy, and it's been a great show. I think that's one of the best headliners ever. But it's nearly over, so let's have another quick look at Monday's front pages. So, the Times has drone strike on US base raises fears of Iran war. The Guardian has fears of US-Iran conflict intensify after troops killed in drone attack. The Sun, Kyle, I'm so sorry. The Daily Mail, strike hell on trains as chiefs cash in. The Express, Kemi, stirring Tory plotters must stop messing around. And finally, the Daily Star, balmy, which is about the weather. Those were your front pages. That is it for tonight's show. Thanks to Paul and Lewis. I'm back tomorrow with Paul, but not Lewis, because he's sacked. So we'll see you at 11 p.m. And if you're watching at 5 a.m., then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, of course, it's good night or good morning, and God bless.
Best show.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got rain pushing across central areas